Welcome to the Destiny of Manufacturing podcast, powered by the Precision Metal Forming Association. I am your host, Dean Phillips, and I am very proud to have the honor to be here with you today. From Dayton, Rogers, I have with me the Executive Director of Operation, Mike Ingalls. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you. Thanks, Dean, for having me.
Great to have you. So right off the bat, what's your big takeaway for the next 5 years?
My big takeaway is in the short run, manufacturing industry, automation through process is going to be critical to success.
Excellent. So let's expand on that. When you say automation through process, now I'm sure everybody we'd like to believe knows what that means, but can you clarify how we can improve through that?
Yeah, I mean, when you think of automation, in my opinion, you go to robotics, you go to repeatable processes in the manufacturing world. For a short run manufacturer or short run stamper, we're not necessarily able to implement robotics. We're not doing repeatable things day in and day out. There's a lot of change out. There's a lot of different products, processes. So we're able to recognize increased efficiencies through automating our processes, not necessarily the manufacturing process, but the supporting processes that go along with it. Order entry, order write-up, contract review, etc.
Right. Well, I think you're absolutely right. I think at the end of the day, Six Sigma is all about, things like being consistent, and lean. Of course, you want to take away any impediments to it. And the more things you can do to improve your process will lead to those bigger gains.
Absolutely.
So what got you involved in manufacturing?
You know, it's not my background, I'll be honest. Retail management is the world I come from. It's where I spent most of my working life so far. I kind of just fell into a spot, entered the manufacturing industry through purchasing, dealing with raw materials and components that went into the parts we make. Through that, I felt, I guess you could say, a passion really for the industry, seeing all the products that we produce, all of the industries that we support, and really how domestic U.S. manufacturing changes people's lives every day, whether that's the aerospace industry, commercial and space and defense, aircraft, support equipment for that, whether it's medical, devices that literally do change and save people's lives.
Yeah, I think that is something that we need to do a better job. We being the manufacturing industry, we need to do a better job of communicating that message. Yes, we are important. Yes, we are impactful. Yes, we do make a difference in people's lives, all the way down to the individual person who's coming into a plant. We're changing their lives. And I think we need to do a better job at communicating that message out. So thank you very much for exemplifying that, because, and you talk about raw materials, nothing more raw than bringing in new people off that have no experience coming into manufacturing.
Yeah, it's a big learning curve for sure. But once you see the impact that manufacturing has, I think you really, if you're in this industry, you have no choice but to grow a passion for it.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true. So I appreciate that, Mike. So let's talk about your processes. When you're examining what you're doing, tell me a little bit about how you assess and develop an idea of what is really important.
Yeah, we first start by what are the things we do every day? What are the things we do on a given frequency? And what are those commonalities between those things? In the short run world, as I said earlier, there's consistent change. We're not manufacturing the same product day in and day out. In fact, in my experience with Dayton Rogers, we'll do upwards of 25 to 50 die changes in a day. You know, we're running 100 to 100,000 parts. We're not talking about the millions where you set up a tool and run it for weeks. So we look at all of the similar processes that we have. We find the commonalities, and we really just dive in and find a solution to automate as much as we can those processes, whether that's through SMED, single minute exchange of die, you know, changing the way we're designing our tools to make it a quicker, more efficient setup. We
Right.
talk about in the process itself, I mentioned order entry, contract review. You know, what are we able to utilize in today's technology to streamline those processes? Leaning on AI, you know, accounts payable is a big one. You typically have one or two people, depending on the size of your business, processing invoices, entering that data into the computer. There's AI that can process that can read invoices and scan and, you know, input that data now.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up. How you how much do you think AI will be impacting our manufacturing in the future?
It's definitely a big topic of discussion as of late. You see the rise of Chat GPT and all of these AI platforms. I think on the administrative side, it's going to play a big role. Seeing trends, you know, analyzing data, things that necessarily aren't the money makers of the manufacturing world. I see a big impact with artificial intelligence and automation on that side of the industry.
Yeah, I worked for a manufacturer that built fabrication equipment, and when I was working there, you could see that when I asked them how much they charge for a certain product, they said, "Well, what is our competitor charging? And we'll just charge
Okay.
less than them." And but they had no idea whether they were making money or losing money, which products they were making money on, which ones they were losing money on. So so data and information plays such a key role in how productive you are. And I would imagine for you guys, a lot of that changes the way you look at your mix of products, what you can and can't do, and especially where you want to be kind of focused and positioned within the market. How has that changed how you've thought about things, this information?
We've come a long way since manual tracking of all that data, you know, pivot tables and spreadsheets and charts. And uh, really now in today's world, that data is at your fingertips. If you're using a robust ERP system, it's right there. It's a mouse click away. And that has really helped Dayton Rogers hone in on the industries we're successful in. We know we're very successful in the aerospace market, for example. We know in the medical device market we're very successful, and not just from a sheer sales standpoint, but a profitability, you know, standpoint as well. And having that data right at your fingertips allows us to make a lot better educated decisions when we're going into a new project or having a marketing campaign for a specific industry. So it's a big change from even when I started 6 years ago, for sure.
Wow. In the manufacturing process side of it, what have you seen on the floor, how what you've done has really impacted what's going on?
Really, we look at efficiencies of our labor, having that data again right at your fingertips, analyzing the type of product or the specific operation of any given part. You know, if we're blanking, you know, Dayton Rogers has a few different designations for blanking. It depends on the size of the part. We can hone into a specific operation, not only see labor efficiency, but profitability as well of any job we ship with that specific operation. We use that data to find some gaps in our business and really just focus in using that and improve a process or improve a design or whatever it might be.
When you say that you look at it from the process of the operation, is it more focused on the equipment or is it more focused on the people? Or
It's a split between both. With the immediate access to all of the information, it's shifting. We focus a lot in the past on labor efficiency. What we do in the short run world is labor intensive. Lot of die change outs. We're not running often large progressive stamping dies. It's a lot of modular manual transfer type tooling. What I do see is a shift from that labor efficiency focus to more of a machine efficiency focus. As we hone in on our processes, we almost eliminate the possibility for a poor labor efficiency. Of course, people are they're human. So human error is always going to be a thing as long as, you know, people are running these punch presses. But as we streamline our tools, our setups, our operations, the focus then shifts to machine capacities, machine efficiencies.
and when it comes to the manual processes that you're doing, or where people are integrating with the machine, do you find that you're like tools like a Pokeyoke or some type of a system like that where you're trying to error proof what you're doing? Has that helped also?
A vast amount of help, really.
Okay.
Yeah, as we improve our tool designs, Pokeyoke you mentioned, as we make it dummy proof, we make the setups seamless. You almost eliminate any possibility of error. That definitely helps the business for sure.
Gotcha. Yeah, have you found that there's more that you're doing with the process within the press itself, or do you find that it's more the handling of the part, handling of the material that is really contributing to the improvements you've made?
I would say it's probably an even split between both at Dayton Rogers. With just the sheer amount of parts we make, not in necessarily volume, but different types of parts. It's tough to streamline every movement through our plant. We have parts starting and stopping and finishing at all different sorts of equipment. So in my opinion, the focus here is on material handling and how that stuff flows through the shop and gets to its final destination, which is the shipping department, and goes out the door.
Do you find that you're doing more cellular kind of manufacture, or do you think it's more line style? Which one works better for you guys?
For Dayton Rogers, it's more cellular based. It's in going through this data, we see a lot of commonalities between specific operations. Typically, a part's going to start on this 50-ton press. It's going to get blanked. More times than not, it's going to end up getting formed on the 50 to 80-ton press. We've been able to track that and analyze that data. So as we move equipment or purchase new equipment, we're focusing more on the cellular type manufacturing.
Do you find that that's restrictive at all? Where, okay, if I have this machine, and I want to try and get into that one piece flow where I'm taking the part, I go over here, and I go over here, then I go over here, that because of that, it restricts what other parts I may look at. I may not want to take on this job because it's taking me out of the best and most efficient flow.
Yeah, that's definitely something we encounter in our world. There's not one size fits all. So, again, I mentioned, 30 to 50 setups a day. We might ship uh, 70 different parts to 70 different customers in one day in lot sizes between 10 and 5,000, just as an example. So, um, really just being selective about the business we take on is how we approach it. We look at the flow of the work when we're designing that process, when we're engineering that process to manufacture that part. The flow of the plant is something definitely considered.
Hmm. It, for for those of you who are watching this podcast or listening to it, in either case, I do want to explain to somebody who may not understand how much that is impactful. When you talk about 30 to 50 changeovers a day, 1 minute can make a whole difference, on either side. So loading and unloading. I mean, you're talking about an hour of lost production by streamlining or improving your process by 1 minute. Those of you who don't think it's that big of a deal, 1 minute here or there, when you're when you're doing 30 to 50 changeovers a day, it is incredibly complicated to how much it's going to impact you at the end of the day. And I don't know if Dayton Rogers is this way, but they don't pay you if you're not making parts, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
They don't care how
Exactly.
long you take. You can take all day if you have to
Yeah.
to load a tool, or as long as
Yeah.
it takes you to run a coil in or out. That's fine, but
Yeah.
I'm not paying you any differently. So,
Right. Yeah,
so
that's you mentioned, a minute over 30 to 50 setups, that adds up. And then you extrapolate that over a week, over a month, over a year. I mean, potential for hundreds of hours of what we're going to call inefficiency,
right.
just based on process. How far away is that setup operator's tool cart? Does he have a ratchet instead of a box wrench? That's all things that we really dive into to streamline that setup.
Wow. Have you guys looked at all at virtual reality or processes? Have you looked at that at all? I know some companies have looked at using a VR to look at their efficiency of how they're moving and things that are also may not meet certain safety and or ergonomic moves. So I see more people leaning at looking at these things like General Motors, for example. They may have a racking system. And when they're moving something from this rack and this person has to make, a 180-degree pivot,
Right.
well, that's a lot of motion. It's inefficient and
Hmm.
it is also an ergonomic issue that you run into. And then when you're having to lift it up or down, you run into other things of damaging parts and things like that.
Hmm.
Is that something you guys have looked at all?
Uh, Honestly, no, it really hasn't hit the radar yet. If there's any listeners that have information on that, I'd love to see it. Because yeah, I could see how that would make a big difference. The ergonomic side, definitely. I care about all the operators out on the floor. And repeated back and forth and moving and up and down. I mean, it does wear you out over a while. And if there's the ability to improve that, I'm all for it.
Yeah. You guys certainly seem to be a very forward thinking company and really having your finger on the pulse of what you're trying to do and accomplish, and you have goals for that. How do you think that that translates when you're recruiting people? You're trying to bring in new employees.
It's a talking point for sure. I bring it up in almost any interview I have. We are open to feedback. All of our manufacturing facilities have a line for direct feedback to the executive team within Dayton Rogers. That's something that's reviewed often. So, along with our initiative to drive change in process and improve our processes, we're always interested in feedback from every employee within Dayton Rogers, and that's something that I really do like to push when I'm interviewing.
Mhm.
You know, it's something I feel a lot of companies don't do. A lot of companies are not open or resistant to change. This is the way we've always done it. This is the way we're going to continue to. And that's not an environment that breeds success, long-term success. You always need to
Right.
be open to change.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and I think more many companies today are challenged by recruitment, but it's not because, and I think a lot of people think, well, it's the labor pool you have today. And there's some of that, but I think part of it is the messaging you're giving them. If you can't give them a reason why they should want to work there, well, we're giving them a job. No.
We send them a paycheck.
we, if that's your only thought process, you're going to really have a difficult time. And uh, I see people out there that struggle, and it varies from 3 to 1 to 10 to 1. How many people you hire in order to keep one? And
Yeah.
the best companies are leaning on the 3 to 1 side or better. The worst companies are 10 to 1 or worse. And
Mhm.
and that is a scary thought that you're hiring 10 people to get one to stick.
Yep.
That is really scary of how much time you spend and how much money you're putting into it.
Mhm.
Does your process improvements extend into that aspect of extending into training for new employees, of recruiting new employees, all of that?
Yeah, definitely on the onboarding training, the new hire training. We've done a lot of streamlining of that process. It's almost all web based. They can do it from their phone. You know, so that's an initiative we took to tailor more to the younger generation. Um, there's a lot of talk about Gen Z and seeing how that's going to play into the future of manufacturing. I could talk for probably quite a while on this younger generation. Uh, they just want to be heard. They want to make a difference. That's the general vibe I get on them. So including them in the feedback loop within Dayton Rogers has been a big change for us and has made us a little more successful in recruiting talented people. We talk a lot about schools and skills and just the education system, talking about the skilled labor markets. Any opportunity I get to speak to a group of high schoolers or even elementary kids, I like to talk about manufacturing and why it's so important and why it can be a successful career path.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's thank you for that because that's really important to me of giving back and but more importantly, being able to communicate that message out
Mhm.
there. I think we as a whole manufacturing, we struggle with getting that message out to people. And I think it's a challenge at the end of the day to make sure that, hey, we want to make sure that they understand why we're doing what we do. And we want to make sure that they're involved in it. Uh, and we're just about out of time, Mike. I'd like you to, if you don't mind, we have one quick thing. I always
Mhm.
ask everybody, why are you involved with the Precision Metal Forming Association?
Yeah. I got involved when I first started with Dayton Rogers. I think the first event I ever went to was a Forming Our Future conference. I found a lot of important information and I learned a lot based on the training courses that I took there. I have built a lot of very strong relationships with fellow people in the industry. I know I can call two or three people at any given time. They're going to give me honest feedback. It's really just the networking side for me has been the most beneficial. I've met a lot of great people. I've learned a lot of things from those people. Um, also, one thing that I do really like about PMA is their emphasis on the educational side. So I'm the chair for the Educational Foundation of the Southeast District. And I love to see the impact that the scholarships we give away make on these younger generations and keeping them in the manufacturing industry, the skilled labor trades, I feel is so important, like we just discussed earlier.
Yeah.
But really, I mean, thousands and thousands of dollars are given away once or twice a year. Many, many scholarships. And a lot of the events we have are just really to build funds so we can give back to the community and give back to these younger kids, that want to stay in the industry and have a passion for it.
Tremendous. Mike, it has been my pleasure. Thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to be here.
Of course.
It's important, and I want to thank you. Any closing comments?
Oh man. Really just in the short run world, and I speak to that because that's where my experience is, but there's a lot coming down the pipeline as far as the automation side and AI and all of that. You got to focus on the process. You got to nail that down first before you dig in elsewhere.
Great point. Well, everybody, thank you so much for being here, and thank you, Mike. I'd like to thank everybody for taking time to listen to this podcast or view it, depending on what platform you're on. Go out and make it a great day.